What would you do if your life was on the line? Can you protect yourself and your loved ones from harm? In the early hours of New Year's Day, my good friend Matt had to answer these questions in a fight for his life. Matt, it's been 1 week since the attack. Does it feel surreal, or has the reality of everything kind of settled in yet?
The most surreal part for us was the drive home. I mean, after everything was done, we were driving home from the time the interaction started. Within an hour or two, we're back in my truck, which was shockingly in perfect shape. Like I was fully expecting this thing was going to be banged up by the time we got to it. But you know, we're driving home, and that was absolutely surreal. You know, Maddie and I just looking at each other. We didn't even, I don't think we talked for the first 10 or 15 minutes driving home. It was just such a, did that really just happen to us kind of thing, that we kind of rode in silence. It's really been, over the past week, getting a chance to process and think about what's occurred and how it was handled. And it's much more like, oh, okay, this happened. Like, what do we do now?
Can you walk me through what happened that led up to the attack and how you responded in that scenario?
We got a call from some friends that, you know, they wanted to do a New Year's Eve hangout. And we're like, cool, let's go hang out. They're like, look, it's going to be very low key. I think we all wore pajamas even. You know, it was a very, very kind of laid back type deal. And so we're in the truck and we're getting ready to drive home. And I remember Maddie said to me, she was like, man, I wonder what's holding up traffic. And so I look towards the roundabout to my left, and I see probably maybe 8 or 10 cars that are backed up, but the other lane is flowing fine. You know, there's no obstruction or anything there. And so we get up close to it, and it's a bicycle, right? Somebody had left their bike, and it's like right in the middle of the lane. Immediately we're thinking, you know, Maddie's like, oh my gosh, do you think somebody needs help? Because we're thinking New Year's Eve, you know, people drink and drive every year. And we're thinking, we don't see a body at that point. We don't see anybody. We just see cars and the bike. And we're thinking, man, what if somebody got hit, rolled into the ditch, whatever might be the case. So we stop the truck, put on the hazards, and we get out and start looking around. We see this guy. I have no idea where he came from. And I remember I was like, sir, are you hurt? Do you need help? And as soon as he got close to me, he let out like this scream as he uncoiled. Like he never stood up and squared up with me. He just went straight from the coil of I'm hurt. And unfortunately for me, he's already kind of got his hips cocked, and he came out of it and clipped me with a right hook under my eye. But at that point, I noticed that he had reached down and was reaching into his waistband. And so immediately you start thinking in that moment, okay, well, this has the potential to escalate from a fight. Because remember, we don't know that he wants the truck at this point. Like we don't know what he wants. We're going from injured guy to suddenly we're fighting. Like, what does this guy want? Is he here to hurt us? Like, is he tweaking out? Is he on drugs? Does he want the vehicle? Like you have no idea what this guy's motive is. I kind of have to make a guess at that point. You know, some people would say, okay, when he reaches down for that, if it's a gun, rush him and try to control the arm so he can't draw on you, which is great unless it's a knife. And now I've just entered his area where he can stab me. You know, I've closed distance and allowed him to be in enough area where he can stick me. But if it's not a knife and it is a gun, right, and I back up because I don't want to get stabbed, well, now I've given him room to draw on me. So it really, those are the margins for people. Like these, it's not as clear as people think, oh, I would do this, I would do that. Like there's split second decisions that have life altering consequences. And I got to get to a phone. My phone's still in the cup holder. I got to get to my phone so I can call the cops. Like clearly this has escalated from just, you know, maybe a drunk man who's just fighting something or whatever. Maybe he's on drugs, whatever it might be. This has escalated to, oh, he's trying to steal the truck. So the picture is getting a little bit more clear as the interaction is going on. You know, he's in the driver's seat he kind of reaches out and tries to like grip at me, grip my wrist. And that's something we do every single day in our training is grip fighting, getting people's hands off of you, getting your hands in advantageous places on them. Just because, and as the story will bear out, when you have the advantage from a grip perspective, it limits what they can do to you and allows you to keep yourself safe. It's very hard. If somebody grabs your collar and pushes you down, it's very hard to punch them like this. So it's a very advantageous thing to do, to have the advantage of a good grip. I could hear my wife calling to me, but it was like my brain wasn't registering. I was so focused on what's going on in front of me. It took my brain a minute to realize what was being said. It was like almost white noise. I could hear it, but not understand it. She's saying, just let him take the truck. He'll leave. He's going to shoot you. The scenarios of all the things that can go wrong start playing in your head. And that list gets very long. And the list of things that can go right is very short to almost non-existent. And so at that point, I think to myself, Maddie's not in the car. She's safe. I, to this point, am not shot, not stabbed. I haven't been poked. There's nothing physically wrong with me. I mean, my eye hurts, but other than that, I'm fine. The cops are already on their way. They've been called. Just back out. Like, I'm alive. I survived a sneak attack from a multi-time violent felon. Just bail out, take the win. Like, you're alive. The truck doesn't matter. There's nothing in that vehicle that money can't replace. Just bail. And he peels off and leads the cops on a chase down. From what we gather now, he jumped the roundabout. We ended up knowing a few people that were out at dinners and doing whatever they were doing for their New Year's Eve celebrations that saw my truck, lights off with 8 cops behind him, just weaving in and out of traffic, going 100 miles an hour down Ambassador. It's a miracle that he didn't kill anybody. He leads him on a chase, which, by the way, the cops were fantastic. I mean, the speed that they were on this guy was almost unbelievable. Like, we hadn't even finished writing our statement with the Lafayette PD officer that responded before we could hear the sirens of the chase going on. They were on him immediately. And so we ride and take the 15, 20 minute drive, whatever it is, and get down there and I see my truck and shockingly it's in good shape. And so Maddie and I get in the truck after, the police finish everything they're doing and we're just driving home in silence. Like, how did this really just happen to us? Like, how in the world, what do we do now? We just went from, eating New Year's Eve grapes and pork chops to a fight for your life to now you're driving home, like, over the course of an hour and a half. It was quite wild.
Most people will probably never experience this level of life or death scenario where their fight or flight system is really kicking in high gear. I want to dive a little bit deeper into the mindset that you were in. Can you explain a little bit what was going through your mind in those moments?
When he hit me, I was so surprised that he hit me that I couldn't register why my face hurt. Like, it sounds kind of funny, but I had to think about him. Like, did I just get hit? Like, what did he throw something at me? It was such a shock to me that it happened. And then from there, it really becomes, what are you prepared for? Because these things are happening so fast. It's such a quick response of everything that's going on in front of you. Whatever you've trained is going to come out. So whether that's boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, whatever it is, whatever you've trained, you're just going to do automatically. Like, I don't remember thinking to myself, oh, I have to get an underhook and get my back off this truck and, then try to land strikes from there or do a collar. You just do it. Like, we've done it so many times. You just do it. You get comments from people sometimes that say, oh, I would have done insert. And I think I don't think it's from a place of malice, but it's hard to convey to people what your body does when you're in a position where you're like, oh, this could be it. Like if this goes south, they're going to be reading eulogies about me. And that's weird. It's so easy to freeze in that moment, and it doesn't make people cowards. It doesn't make them, weak in any way. It's such an overwhelming stimulus to your mind when something like that happens. If you're not ready for it, it's absolutely overwhelming.
You've been an advocate for self-defense and training for years now, basically as long as I've known you. How significant were those skills when it came time to use them?
Well, I'll say this. Once I knew we were fighting, I wasn't struck again. The only significant blow that he landed on me was the one where I didn't know that we were fighting yet. For me to know that, one, you can take a punch, like it hurt, don't get me wrong. And thankfully it didn't hit my nose or anything like that would water my eyes. But to know that in that moment you can respond, you know what to do, even when it's not great circumstances around you. Because let's just think about it. If, God forbid, this happens to anyone, you're not going to get an opinion on the matter. Like the suspect is not going to ask you if you're ready for him to assault you. He's not going to let you know in advance. You're not going to know it's coming. And so that's disorienting. I mean, just think about when somebody changes the lunch plans that you're not ready for. That can be oh, wait, what do I want to do here? And magnify that by 1,000. Maddie didn't get hit at all. I only got hit that once. And he walked away in handcuffs. It went about as well as it could have.
We're going to be speaking with your training coach in just a few minutes, but before we get there, I just had one final question for you. You and I were catching up this past Sunday at church and just kind of debriefing because it had only been a couple of days since this attack had happened. And you mentioned to me you had a renewed sense of gratitude. What are some of those things? Is there something in particular that you now appreciate more after going through this experience?
When you realize, nobody wants to think about death, right? No, nobody wants to sit there and chew on that topic. But, and I think we all understand that there's an inevitability to it. We try to put it off as long as we can, but when it's here and when you're looking at it, it can change your perspective on the mundane, right? Like me getting up this morning and getting to have coffee with my wife, that you appreciate those things. Me getting to go in there and train, that, I'm grateful. I had a great friend of mine that kind of talked to me through the circumstance. And he was like, dude, just think about this. Like maybe God knew that this man meant for evil. And so instead of putting an old lady or someone who would freeze and maybe would have lost their life, maybe he put you in that way because he knew that, you had trained through all this time. Like I'm grateful that it didn't happen to someone else that maybe wasn't trained, or maybe they just physically weren't strong enough, an old woman, something like that. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the work that our police department did. I mean, look, this guy that I dealt with was a multi-time violent felon. He's been in and out. They've arrested this guy I don't know how many times, and that's got to get aggravating. Just objectively, it's got to be annoying for them. Like, I'm tired of arresting the same people that keep violating innocent people and they keep getting let out. I'm grateful to our church family, my family and friends that have been around us, that have poured out so much support and kindness to us. The friends who have maybe served in the military or been overseas that have been through traumatic experiences, that have been able to share with us, hey, this is probably how you're going to feel. This is what's normal. This is, as you process through all these different things. So it's been a lot of gratitude for sure.
Now we're joined by Matt's coach, Heath. Thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure.
So what were you thinking when you first heard the news that Matt had been attacked?
Well, first and foremost, I was glad that they were okay. Situations like that, you never really know what's going to happen. I think Matt handled himself in the situation really well. Couldn't be more proud of him. He wasn't sure if the guy had a weapon or not. At the point, he felt like it was safe to get away. I think his fight or flight mechanism in his brain worked pretty well in that situation. As soon as he realized the threat was not a threat anymore and they were safe, it was okay to disengage and, live to talk about it.
As a defense coach, I'm sure you see a lot of people come into your courses or classes that they're probably thinking that, oh, this is just going to be like a movie, or this is going to be pretend for a little bit. But that's not really what happens in a real world scenario like what happened to Matt. So how do you help those students that come in who just you have to bring reality to them?
Yeah, so when someone's first walking into a martial arts gym, they don't really know what they're getting into, whether it's going to be like Fight Club or we're going to be, punch in the air like, you're like karate schools or whatever. You don't know what you're getting into. At Acadiana Jiu-Jitsu, we do a lot of grappling-based martial arts, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, judo, stuff like that, as well as like the striking martial arts that you see a lot on TV. The fact of the matter is, when you see things like knockout punches or really special techniques, that's like on World Star Hip Hop or whatever, viral video you see that day. That's kind of an anomaly. A lot of times in self-defense situations, it's not a one move works. It's a kind of a back and forth struggle. A lot of times it ends up on the ground. So the way Matt handled the situation, keeping a good base, never letting the guy get in the upper hand once they knew that they were engaged. I mean, that's what we teach at Acadiana Jiu-Jitsu. Stay safe, couldn't be more proud of him.
I want to dive a little bit deeper into some of those skills that you teach and are also just required to defend yourself. What are some of those key skills that someone needs to learn in order to defend themselves from an attacker?
Probably like the most important thing is awareness of your surroundings. Matt did a good job. He noticed there was a bike or something in the road. He noticed the guy approaching. He did everything correctly. The guy didn't seem like a threat. He did a really good job of hiding that. But once things changed, his mentality changed and he started, doing what he had to do to stay safe and stay alive and keep his family safe. So what we like to do is try and get situations as close to we can to reality without it being unsafe. So like we try to create scenarios like he was saying, working against walls or getting off of walls, or if a bigger, stronger person's on top of you, how to get out from underneath or possibly take them down if need be. These are all things we practice, but I would say the number one thing is knowing what's going on around you. When you go into a parking lot, kind of look around. Don't be playing around on your phone. That's probably the number one thing. Next to that, I would say probably managing distance. And unless you're in the gym, managing distance, understanding, when people's throwing punches at you or trying to take you down and get their hands on you, how to manage that distance and stay safe. That's probably the next thing. All the other skills you can learn in the gym, and it's kind of like you have to try and apply them. We teach you how to do it, then we give you situations where you can try and apply it against a resisting opponent. And we gradually work up to a more realistic situation. But the beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu is if it gets too crazy, you could always tap out.
You mentioned the word mentality. I'm sure a lot of people focus on the physical side of the training and the defense, but how are you developing, or how can someone develop the right mindset to handle a scenario like that?
There is a desensitization to the violence, I guess you would say. When people first come into the gym, they think they're fighting for their life, or sometimes they think they're going to join Fight Club or something crazy like that. most of our classes are beginner based. So when you first come in, we're going to teach you how to do the moves, kind of go through it. And then later on, like I said, then we're going to let you try and apply it. Putting yourself in situations against a resisting opponent or training partner in the gym over and over and over gets you desensitized to that situation. You can also build up muscle memory like you would tying your shoes, right? I don't have to think about tying my shoes anymore, just like he didn't have to think about getting underhooks or grip fighting for collar grips. So these small little situations that we teach you in the gym do translate to real life, but if you don't practice them on a regular basis, you're not going to be very quick to go for the move or go for the technique.
How grateful are you now that you decided to take that class, decided to join a gym, and to find a coach that can mentor you, invest in you, and teach you the things that you needed to prevent this story from being a lot worse?
Yeah, absolutely. Grateful, to Heath and Jules as well, and Ryan. And I mean, there's so many high level guys, Alan, Mike, like just one black belt after another, which is not particularly common. When you go to gyms, you get to see guys who have kind of been there and done that and can walk you through, hey, this is what it's like to be in a fist fight. This is what it's like to, have your life threatened. And all that experience is just so invaluable to have. For me, I think when I started it, I grew up an athlete and then, you get done with school, and certainly I was not athletic enough to play in the NFL. So your sports career kind of ends, if you will. And when it stops there, you still have that competitive drive. You still have that desire to do something athletic. But I tried tennis. I don't really play golf. And you look at jiu-jitsu and you say, okay, well, there's something that not only I can do to stay in shape, to stay active, to be competitive, but it's also a very applicable life skill with just how crazy the world is. I mean, a lot of people don't like to realize it, but a lot of these guys that are committing these crimes are repeat offenders, and they're multi-time felons. I saw a stat the other day: 63% of felons, violate the law again. And so all of that comes together to make you grateful, because you understand, like, these people are real. They're there. And so if you can do something that kind of hits all that, hits competitive, keeps you active, great community of friends and experience that you can lean on, from Heath to Jules, all those guys, and also can help you stay alive when, God forbid, one of these guys, like this guy, a repeat violent felon who's back out on the street, is out there, that you can, keep the people who matter to you safe, and ultimately you can keep yourself safe.
Since we have both of you here, Heath, before we go, is there anything that you want to say directly to Matt just about the situation that has happened?
Well, I think a lot of people may have given him a little bit of flack for not like ending this guy or giving him what he deserves, so to speak. But what really comes down to it is safety at the end of the day. Like Matt said earlier, he could have engaged with this guy. He could have hurt this guy. He could have, done a lot of damage to this guy. But what really matters at the end of the day is he didn't know if he had a weapon. He didn't know if this guy was, maybe going to stab him with a old needle that he had used earlier or something crazy like that. So the unknown, you don't really want to deal with. He did know that he can get away, and that's what he went with. So your fight or flight, is important, to know when to engage and when to disengage. And just because of the way he handled the situation, I couldn't be more proud of you, man. Both of you.
All right. Thank you so much for being here.